Hello and welcome to the Soul Shaking Love podcast. I'm your host, Valerie Green from coachvaleriegreen.com. And this podcast is dedicated to bringing you the world's expert teachers on mind, body, and spirit connection, both with yourself and with your true love. And today, I'm really excited to interview Unconscious-Mind Coach Wendy Patterson about how emotions are the beacons to life. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. And this is such an amazing topic. I'm really excited about the interview because, as my audience knows, my biggest healing was overcoming a life of emotional repression, and how much that caused me to just react in my relationships rather than respond consciously. And my journey has been an emotional healing one, and so this is like one of my favorite topics. We're going to talk about that our emotions come up for a reason, and that there's a process that everyone teaches differently. So I'm excited to share Wendy's process for how to work through them and how to receive the message so that we can both receive our intuition and our inner guidance about what to do and how to respond consciously, how to take positive action. And also then we can appropriately respond to other people's emotions, because we can't do that unless we're listening to our own, right?
Exactly. So very true.
Exactly. So I will tell you a little bit about Wendy first, and then I love to dive into the topic. So Wendy is a lifelong seeker of self-discovery, and she battled depression and anxiety while juggling multiple roles, including the corporate world. And so now she's an unconscious mind coach specializing in guiding women to rediscover joy and fulfillment. She has certifications in Reiki, NLP, timeline therapy, and a lot of other modalities. And she empowers her clients to reconnect, reinvent, and deepen self-love in just 10 hours or less. So I really think that the tools and processes that she has to teach can benefit everybody. And so let's just really dive in. She'll have a free gift to share at the end as well. First of all, let's just talk about why is it so important to feel our feelings? And, related to that is why, if it's so important, then why don't we as a culture?
I think if I look back at my own culture and how I grew up, emotions were never discussed in our family life, like none. It was just like, get over it, pull your big girl pants on, and keep moving forward. So totally. I remember going through adolescence and kind of being really messed up and just needed somebody to talk to and never found anybody. However, I just kept going and moving. However, when I got older and I had a family and I had children, and then my whole world blew up then, because I discovered I was a people pleaser. I was codependent. I couldn't even say how I felt at any given moment. I was projecting it out just like my parents did in their lives and how I grew up. And it's all a behavior that was learned at a very young age. So therefore, I did it in my marriage. Yep. The exact same marriage, the same marriage that my parents had, I had with my first husband. So therefore, it's like, there's more to communication. There's more to life than this. And when I finally took that step back from my first marriage and discovered how my happiness was so squelched by taking care of everybody else but myself, and not even doing anything for myself at that point, because I had a family, I had a corporate life, and my kids were super young and kept them super busy, and we all do things. But what do we do for ourselves? Mm-hmm. To connect our heart and our minds together, to be able to feel a feeling and label it. It took me years to label, and there are days where, yes, it's still difficult at times. However, when I take that time with myself and I find that space to be, then I can connect and I can understand what's going on. So it's like so many things, so many questions that I ask myself and so many lessons that I've learned throughout my whole life as to why are they so important. Because they're beacons to say, okay, this is not for you. It's bringing you back to where, in alignment to where you really need to go. Are we really listening to it, or are we trying to control it?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so much in there. I don't know where you'd like to go from there.
Yes, there is so much in there. And thank you for sharing your story, because I think a lot of us can relate. I think our entire, and at least in the Western world and in a lot of places in the Eastern world, it's, our culture is still in survival mode, and you're valuable for what you do and accomplish. And not so much for how you feel, and feelings are still not valued. And I think a lot of people grew up in the type of environment that you did, meaning like it sounds like your parents were loving in the ways they knew how to be, but it's just not, if we weren't raised with receiving a lot of empathy and emotional support and being able to talk about our feelings in our family system, then we're not going to learn those skills as an adult.
Right.
I mean, we're not going to know them as an adult. Of course, we can learn them. That's why you and I do what we do.
That's right.
But we're not going to have them. And it's not like there's anything wrong with us for not having those skills. It sounds like you recognize, wait a minute, I have this huge discrepancy between like what I want, which is to be authentic and self-expressed in a harmonious way, but I don't know how to do that. And so you had to take time every day, it sounds like, to actually learn how to label what you're feeling and then connect to what you needed, like, and the message that the emotion was trying to tell you. So, what did that journey look like for you?
That journey took me into, I knew at one point I needed a change. I needed a significant change. And being a single mom and not a whole, well, I was able to buy a home and, feed my children and house them, clothe them, give them the activities that they'd like to do. Therefore, very little money for myself to do anything. However, I had bumped into a good friend of mine, and he mentioned about a 10-day meditation retreat, that there was at least 2 of them in Canada, close to me, that I could attend. And it's a 10-day silent meditation retreat. If you know anything about Eat, Pray, and Love, it's very similar. It's silent. Yes. You go and they house you, they feed you. It is the best 10 days that I could have ever taken for myself, because that's where it really triggered that unconscious mind and the unconscious world to kind of open up a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Where I was able to, when I was spinning out of control and something wasn't going right, and it's like, okay, wait, I'm going to go sit and meditate for a little while. And then all of a sudden, boom, I'd be able to label that feeling. So ever since I started doing that, I'm able to label my feelings. I'm able to discover what need is not being met, to be able to, shake it up, move it forward, so that I know what I need to do whenever I feel that way again, rather than just feeling it all the time and not doing anything about it. So it's really understanding what need is not being met, and try and find and get that need met yourself, rather than having anybody outside of the world in your circumference to actually change for you in any way, shape, or form.
Yes. I think that is such a brilliant way of describing it. And, I know how that journey for myself took several years, let's say, to actually be able to, like, for me, I used both meditation and nonviolent communication as a list of needs, because it's kind of like, okay, you're going to find a list of feelings out there to identify. And the research does show, as I'm sure you can talk about, that just labeling the feeling helps us to not be overwhelmed by it, if we can put that feeling into words. But you're right, then you have to connect to your needs, because feelings are not caused by that person doing something or not doing something. Feelings are caused by a need getting met or not met within ourselves. So do you want to speak to that?
The needs within ourselves?
Yeah, how is it that you describe that to your clients? Because I think that's a really important distinction that you just shared. I'm not angry because of that thing out there. I'm angry because there's a need not getting met in me, and I can meet that need for myself. So do you want to talk more about that?
Right. So I think I would bring back a client to the very first time that they ever felt that feeling. Let's go back and say, okay, who are you with? What was going on? And why do you feel this way? Like, what's the reasoning behind it? And if you can take a step back and view it like a movie from a quantum consciousness perspective, if you can sit back and say, you're loved, you're safe, you're cared for, you're nurtured, and just kind of get that perspective from the NLP version, just to get that better feeling that, you know what, they are well taken care of, but they are now an adult. They are no longer that child. And that they are able to change that feeling within themselves if they can look back at that situation. What was it that you needed at that time? What were you not getting? And what do you need to do right now in order to fill that void within yourself? So that would be my way of, and that's a little bit of timeline therapy as well. We don't make them go into the trauma in any way, shape, or form. We just let them go back and envision it from a conscious perspective sort of way, look at it differently, and then come out of it and shift it by seeing they are no longer that child. They are now an adult. And so let's see what we can do right here and now rather than back then. Here and now, what can we change, or what can you do for yourself to fulfill that need that you did not have back then? Because nobody can give it to you. You have to give it to yourself.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And that's a really powerful way of accessing our needs. And I agree. I think a lot of people misunderstand, which is why it's good to work with a timeline therapist or a neurolinguistic programming practitioner or a hypnotherapist when you access your memories from the past, or a psychotherapist. Right. Because when the memories come up, we might get flooded with them. And it takes somebody helping us to see it like a movie on a movie screen, is what I heard you say. Yep. That conscious observing, like see it as a movie on a movie screen. Don't go back into it. You're there in present time. You're seeing it. But it sometimes takes connecting with ourselves as a child.
Correct.
Like you're saying, in order to know what the need is. Because as children, we intuitively know what our needs are, but then we forget because our parents, if they're not conscious about feelings, they tell us, you don't need that. And then we have to believe them because it's too unsafe to think our parents don't know what, is right for us. And so then we forget all of that, and then we forget what we needed. And so you're absolutely right. It's important to access the memories from the past in order to know. Because when we do, we're like, oh, I needed my mom to pick me up and hold me while I was crying in that moment. I shouldn't have been left alone. And bam, it's like, how can you do that for yourself now? But you're really an important part of that process, because if the client's trying to do that on their own, I agree. I do that work on my own too, with my own inner child, but I also have a therapist and I have a coach, and it's so much more powerful when someone's holding space for me.
Absolutely. I mean, if I hadn't have heard one of my coaches say, or actually my primary coach, say to me that, because I had explained something that happened in my family dynamic, and she said, your mother was asking for support, needed support. And I'm sitting there going, that just literally blew my mind completely, because I wouldn't have not come up with that word. She needed support. Mm-hmm. And now it's just like, boom. And it kind of came to me as well, because there are times where I need support as well. So when I need support, what do? Is I go in, I take that time to give myself that support that I need. And if I need support in the household, then it's about having a conversation with everybody in the household. Mm-hmm. That's all. And there's no conflict in communication if it can be relayed properly, as you know, with nonviolent communication.
Yes, no, exactly. And I think that a lot of people, though, try to use modalities such as nonviolent communication to say the right words.
Yeah.
And if you try to say the right words, I love, like, I love for people watching the video, the expression on your face when you said, now when I'm paraphrasing you, but now, when I have a need, it's just about talking with the whole family. It's that simple. Like, it was so congruent that it really is simple for you to just talk about it with the whole family. I think it's not simple for most people because they try to say the right words without having done this inner transformation, working with the inner child, being able to identify what you need and meet that for yourself first. And when I work with clients and I try to explain this to them, the first thing they say is, well, but if I'm meeting it for myself, then I don't need anyone else, right? And it's kind of like, so, I mean, I have my way of answering that question, but how do you answer that question when it comes up?
Well, especially if you're in a home with other people, it's not just, this home is not just about you. It's not just all about me, this home. We all are adults and we all need to be participating in the livelihood of the house. Like, my husband has the main floor, he maintains it. My son maintains the basement. I maintain the upstairs. My son empties the dishwasher. My, husband clean ups after when I cook. So we all kind of participate together. And it's just a common, not even a common, it's just a conversation to have. Say, hey, you know what? I'm really feeling really heavy and tired because I feel like I'm carrying the bulk of this work here and I was really like some support. Is there any way that I can get you to vacuum the main floor for me? Or if you can help me clean up after dinner rather than just sitting and playing video games, or just either, I even don't even have to say, well, I don't even have to say that. Can you just give me a hand cleaning up after dinner? I'd really appreciate it. That's all. And it just don't say anything else. I don't need to say anything like going and sitting down and watching video games or going up into the room and, talking to your friends or texting your friends. That's neither here nor there. I have to just ask for what I need at that time to support me. And then once it happens, it's like, hey, that was so simple.
Exactly. I completely agree. And that's such a beautiful example of, you don't have to make anyone wrong. You don't have to point out their behavior that you don't like, because that just puts people on the defensive. All you need to do is be really clear about your own needs, but you're not able to be clear about your own needs if you don't take time to feel your feelings and identify what you need. Once you do that, then you can ask for it. I think what I was saying earlier is, when we meet that need for ourselves, meaning like, okay, let's say I identify support, like the need of support. If I don't meet it for myself first, like take time out to support myself by taking a bath, or take time out to support myself by doing 10 minutes of meditation or whatever. I mean, I understand some people don't have 10 minutes legitimately, but taking some time to support myself by booking a massage next week, knowing I have that on the calendar, whatever it is. I mean, I want to acknowledge people are in different situations, and I'm calm because I know I'm supporting myself. Then when I ask my family for support, I can do it in a more calm way. But if I'm not meeting that need for myself, then when I ask my family, that resentment is going to come out in my tone of voice, even if I'm saying all the right words. Then it might come out like, well, I just feel really depleted, and can you give me a hand after dinner? And like, then they might feel judged and be like, no, I don't want to, but like, I think the way you said it shows that you take time on a daily basis or a regular basis to feel your feelings, identify your needs, and meet the need for yourself so that you can be calm when you ask for your needs to be met by others. So what are the ways that you are able to feel your feelings and meet your needs on a daily basis for yourself now?
Currently, I have an Australian Shepherd. I walk her every morning. First, it's like my meditative state. First thing in the morning, we get out for a walk. And then after a long day, I'm on a bus, so that's where I have my time to down. And it's like, okay, what went on throughout the day? Did I have any triggers? And could I have handled it any better? Or, what am I going to, how am I feeling walking into the home, making sure that I left work outside the home before I come in the home, and if my husband is still working, then I have to give him his time to come down from his work, not approach him, not talk to him until he's come down and he's ready to have that conversation. Because there's the whole work dynamic too, especially if you're working outside the house. Everybody needs that time to decompress before you have a conversation.
Yep.
Because often I've discovered in my husband, the type of work that he does, it's like he's like a fire hose if I ask him a question as soon as I come into the house. So I have to really wait for him to have his time, just to shut it off for a little while. And then we can have a conversation as to how was your day, if he needs to talk more about it, he'll talk more about it. And then we'll just leave it at that. And it's just finding that space. Either I walk the dog or I go for a walk or I even just sit in my room and I think about, okay, what's going on? Where am I feeling it in my body as well is another thing. And where you feel it in your body is really paying attention to, okay, what is it? Is it anger? Is it sadness? Is it fear? Is it guilt? Is it rage? Is it shame? What is it? Right? Those are the 7 major negative emotions that we all feel. However, we have other labels like, depression. That's sad, right? You can come to a conclusion as to what it'll willow down to either anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, rage, or shame. So one of them. Rage and shame are also, or rage is definitely anger. It's just a highly elevated anger. Right. So it's just being able to identify it. And really, identifying it in the body is not easy. It's not. However, it's getting the head out of the way.
Yeah.
And letting the heart lead to be able to feel it, own it, and then surrender to it, and then work towards getting your needs met. So it's just taking a few minutes. It's just taking a few minutes and asking yourself some questions. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? What am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? Why is this happening for me instead of to me? And then it's hard to get there if you don't know what you're feeling. So actually being in tune with your feelings are the most important. And I found in my practice, just taking time for yourself and meditating 5, 10, it doesn't matter. Just take the time for yourself and breathe. Feel your presence. Feel your body. Feel your hands. Feel your feet. Feel the clothes on your skin. Feel your hair. Feel your eyes open and close. Feel the air coming in and out of your nose. It's just being present. And it brings you back to the body where you can, you're coming down and you're kind of grounding yourself. And then you can ask those questions. And when you're at a calm state, then you can ask those questions. And those answers, like you say, your intuition will answer, which you call it either intuition or your unconscious mind or your higher self or whatever. To me, it's very similar to intuition. And I call it intuition as well. To be able to answer the questions. But too many people are so want to know right now and don't take the time to understand what they're feeling and why they're feeling and why it's happening for them. So it's really taking that time with the self. We're just too busy doing.
Yep. I completely agree. I like to say that we're raised in this culture to be human doings, not human beings.
Very well said. Love it.
Right. And
right.
Most of us, unless we had, they say 50% of the population has a secure attachment style, which means they got enough emotional attunement. But I don't know if I believe that statistic. Because I don't know. I mean, it's like attracts like. I've only really met people who tell me if they're really good at feeling their feelings as an adult, that they had to learn that skill.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you on that one. 100%.
I'm sure there are people out there that were raised in an emotionally attuned way and they just have that skill as well. I just don't know them.
And I remember thinking, even as a young child, and hearing my parents, how they were talking to one another, I knew there was another way to communicate. I knew it. Then I got into college and I'm looking in the quad and looking at everybody going, why do people behave and speak the way they do? So it started really young, being
Me too,
inquisitive as
actually.
if to, there's got to be a better way to communicate. There just has to
Hmm.
be. And
Totally.
it's all about, really owning how you feel and not shoveling it on to everybody else. So yeah, it was learned. And like I said, and I believe it stems in us all. It's just, do we pay attention to it? And do we follow that? Right? You followed it. I followed it. I'm sure there's others who have followed it as well.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah.
Many, many people, and I think that like this information hasn't yet reached enough people, meaning I think that of course everybody has emotions and everybody's emotions have a positive message. And there are not that many teachers per capita to help people to learn how to feel their feelings productively.
Right.
And so it sounds like what you're saying is, if I can summarize what you just said, to find some time every day, even if it's just 5 minutes, to sit. And I actually really like the way Raphael Kushner puts it in his book, The One Thing Holding You Back, because he's another teacher about emotions. He says in his book, like, emotions are physical. They are not in your head. They are in your body. That is the one and only place that they are found, in your body. If you're in your head, that's a thought. If you're in your body, that's it could be indigestion or it could be anxiety, but you need to sit down or stand up and spend time feeling your body sensations.
Right.
And breathing and looking at, is it hot or cold? Is it expansive or contracted? Where do I feel it in my body? And, I teach that too. Many other people do, but I like the sentiment that he uses. He's like, that's the one and only place that they're found. And it's true. It's just about however you can do it, taking a walk, sitting down and meditating, but feeling your body sensations and learning how to find the words for the feeling and the need. And do you recommend that people get like a feelings wheel or like use a cheat sheet?
They can definitely use a cheat sheet. There's lots out there. And it doesn't hurt to have it handy, because sometimes people will not be able to label it. But if they have that cheat sheet, then they can just go through. It's like, okay, that's what I'm feeling. And then they'll understand what the root cause is, like the actual real feeling, right? If it's like you say, depression, it's, I'm depressed. Okay, well, then what are you really sad about? Right? So it's just a matter of really, there are lots of cheat sheets out there. I know there's one similar to in a Abraham Hicks book,
Asking
asking,
is given. Yeah, they have their whole emotional ladder that you climb.
yes, in there. Yep.
And I mean, there's feelings wheels. I actually have one as a mouse pad. People want to look at
Oh, that's beautiful.
my virtual background.
That's neat.
Feelings wheel, because it has the core emotions in the middle, and then they go outwards from there. Each one has different core emotions in the middle, but
I also have a cheat sheet as well, and it's like over 1,000 emotions, and there's like, I don't know how many needs are listed at the bottom. It was derived from my previous mentor, and she's mentioned that I could also use it as well. And she created it from the Nonviolent Communication book, and discovering the feelings and needs. So it was just really, and I've been using it for years. And there are days where it's like, I don't know what the heck, I'm spinning out of control. It's like, okay, stop, go get your feelings and needs. What's going on? Right? Because
exactly.
I get so caught up in the world. And I believe also that a lot of we women, because we're taking on so much now, because in our earlier days, the women would stay home with the kids and they'd take care of the kids. However, nowadays, women are taking care of the kids and also working outside the house. So we wear more hats than what we have previously. So that's why we are so doers, and we're constantly doing, because there's always something to do.
Yep.
Very little time do we get to sit down and do nothing unless we force ourselves to sit down and do absolutely nothing.
Yeah. And then it's like we want to experience something that feels good if we're sitting down and doing nothing. We don't want to sit and feel our feelings, So I
Yes.
can absolutely relate to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's one of the main reasons why it's so hard for me still, even though I teach this for a living, to sit down for 5 minutes and feel my own feelings. I need to carve out the time every day to do that myself. And it still takes discipline for me. It doesn't just happen.
No, it does take discipline. It's like keeping a really tight schedule to adhere to, and not that tight that you have a little bit of flexibility. Yet, yes, it's really important to do so. We all fall off the wagon. We all dip, but then when we dip, we always come up higher from where we were. So yes, we all have those dips and lows where we can't, and I have them where I can't label the feeling. And then it's like, okay, well, then when did it start? Where did I start feeling this? And why haven't I taken the time for myself yet? It's okay, because you've been too busy doing that. Okay, well, then why are you doing that? Well, because of this. It's like, well, why don't you stop doing that for a little while so that you can take the time and figure out why you started doing that behavior or giving too much to somebody at that time because you're constantly giving.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a matter, but it's a matter of really fine tuning it and figuring it out what works for you and just making it a common practice. Yes, it's hard, but when we do dip, we come out of it a lot higher and a lot. The conscious level, you dip into the subconscious and you come out a lot higher because the intuition is more in alignment with you at that point too, because you're paying more attention to yourself.
Exactly. And I mean, I think it's important to just, for me at least, I have to keep reminding myself why it's worth it. When I sit down, I try to sit down several times a day and feel my feelings. And when I do that, then when I talk to my husband, I can calmly express my feelings and needs, and we have this harmonious dynamic where it feels good. If I don't sit down and feel my feelings, then all of my programming takes over. And I'm subtly making him wrong, even though I don't even think I am when I say my feelings and needs. I'm just like, I'm angry because this didn't happen, as opposed to being calm about it. And then he feels made wrong and then we're arguing. So I think it's important, for all of us to remind ourselves why am I doing this? What's the benefit,
Yes, 100%. Because it's even to the point where if you feel something and then, I've recognized at times when I feel something and I've kind of lashed out at my husband, I'll turn around and say, I'm really sorry because this brought me right back to something that happened previously and it has nothing to do with you. And I'm really sorry. And I recognized where it stems from. And it's because I need this. So I'm going to make sure that I get that need met next time so that it doesn't come out on you again like that. So it's so lovely to have that type of conversation with him after the fact.
It builds trust and it shows your character and commitment, and then he's more likely to feel close to you.
Right. It all kind of weaves in together. And the relationships all around, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, do you have any, because I know we've shared some, I think the most important tips that people can take to use on their own, meaning find time. It doesn't matter if it's only 5 minutes every day. Find a cheat sheet if you need to identify your feelings and needs. And then find strategies of meeting your needs yourself so that you're calm when you express it to others.
Right.
Rather than like being depleted when you're expressing it to others, then it could come out sounding like you're blaming them, even if you're not. And so I think that's a main takeaway that people can do on their own. Do you have any, and then of course, because this isn't easy to do on our own. And we've talked as well about the inner child work to go back to the past and identify memories and then from there learn what our needs are and reprogram them. So do you want to talk more about that kind of work that you do with clients and, how would somebody know that they are a good fit to work with you?
Well, when it comes down to the and what I'm hearing is a little bit more about timeline therapy, where if my clients are the women who don't take the time for themselves and they drudge up the past and they create the stories in their head in the now. So there's like packages. The small package is we work through maybe 3 or 4 of the emotions, and the full package is working through all 7, because these are all root causes to their whatever is holding them back, basically, so that they can be their authentic selves. So a lot of the root causes, once they've kind of been shifted and we've kind of looked at them a little bit objectively rather than from a trauma standpoint, then it kind of shakes up their unconscious world a little bit, so that when the stuff does come up, they don't react to it as harshly, or as they're not as triggered when it comes up to them in the present. And they are the same person, but the situation is different. It's the same situation, but they're different. And it's really great to see that happen, because it takes time for stuff to integrate with a timeline therapy. That's why I say 10 hours. However, it can last, the shift and shake can last up to 2 or 3 months, because things will start coming up for you to kind of, at face value, okay, what's coming up for you? Well, it's coming up for you. It's because it's wanting you to resolve it. However, then at that point, they have their needs and feelings list, and then they're able to look at it and say, okay, I'm feeling this. And I'm on call as well, so that if they have any issues and they're unable to label it, it's okay. Well, find a space where you can sit down and talk to me about it. And then I'll throw some words at them to see if that's what they feel. And they'll say yes. It's like, okay, well, then what is it that you need? And then they're able to stumble through what it is that they need. And then they can kind of catch it the next time it comes around, because those things always happen until we learn how to move out of it.
Right.
They just get lesser and lesser and lesser when you're aware of what you're feeling, and you're aware of the trigger. And then once you become more aware, it becomes less and less and less and less. It's like peeling away at an onion, right? You're peeling away all the past and all the crap that we've suppressed for all these years. And it wants you to be able to live authentically and not react to everything that comes around. Now, the one thing that I do, and I will highly recommend, if anybody can do it, is to take a 10-day meditation retreat. It'll kickstart your life. It'll shake your unconscious world up. It's not the easiest thing to do. It's not. It's the hardest thing any human being can do. Yet it's a great thing to walk away from saying, I did it. Because you sat that 10 days with you yourself, and that's it. That's all. You can't talk to anybody. You can walk, but you can't talk. You can talk to the instructor for 10 whole days. What's the best thing you could give yourself to really kickstart a change, to really be able to label those emotions? And it's 100% free. So highly, highly recommend it. And also on my website, I have a 5-minute meditation where there's no music, there's no nothing. It's all just about the breath. That's it. That's all.
Oh, that's wonderful. I know that you have a free gift, and your free gift is the stress-free hypnotherapy download. Is the meditation related to that?
Yes, it's on the same page. They're both there.
Great. Okay, great. Yeah, because I'll paste the link then, and then people will get access to the meditation, because and we'll talk about your free gift in a few minutes. But I just wanted to make sure that people had a way to access that 5-minute meditation, because I think that when somebody's first trying meditation, it helps to have guided meditations and to try different teachers to see who resonates. And, so I think 5 minutes of your guided meditation is perfect, to see if people try that and they can manage that 5 minutes and then ask themselves what they're feeling. I think that's just a beautiful takeaway. And before we talk about the free gift, then I do want, would you like me to, because I know that I did a 10-day Vipassana meditation sit as well in 2001.
Good for you.
And I remember that the website is dhamma.org.
It is.
I can post the link to that below as well. I don't want to,
Nope, go right ahead.
dilute your links, but
Nope.
since you
Nope.
said that you recommend it, I will post the link to that
Please do.
below. And I highly recommend that too. It is intense, because I think that not talking for 10 days brings up all your stuff. And yes, you can talk to the instructor. But it's really about going inward. And I will say that it skyrocketed my meditation practice as well. And I knew how to meditate after that. And
Right.
I don't think people have to do that 10-day retreat to learn. I think you can learn with a teacher in shorter increments. The one thing I like about the 10-day retreat is that it's free. And so people don't have to use the excuse that they can't afford to take that much. Of course, if you work for yourself, maybe you can't afford to take that much time off work unless you plan for it. But everyone has vacation time if, they are an employee. And so you can afford it since it's
Right.
free.
Right.
And then that's not the excuse not to do it, because it is a lot of work, and I don't want there to be a lot of reasons why it's not feasible, because
no stories, right? It's it just depends if the person wants it or not. In all honesty, and a lot of people that I speak to, it's like, I could never do it. It's like, okay, that's you then. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Yet, and like you mentioned, there's tons of meditations out there, and there's tons of hypnotherapy, which is to me, it's a guided meditation with a little bit more direct verbiage in it. And yes, test out other meditations, and no matter how much time you spend meditating, it doesn't matter as long as you're sitting with yourself and you're doing something for yourself.
Yes,
With
exactly.
yourself, right?
Yeah, and something for yourself that it allows you to have a sense of mindfulness, meaning the definition of mindfulness, I believe, is just that we're identifying as the witness or the observer of everything inside of us. So I am the one who's noticing the body sensations. And then that's what allows us to be able to label them, to have that perspective to say, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling, depressed. There's a difference between feeling depressed and having clinical depression. Although I find that a lot of times the emotion underneath depression is not just sadness, it's hopelessness and hopelessness. So I wanted to
Correct.
say that as well.
Yes.
I feel like there's just so many emotions that we could be feeling. And that's why it's so important to have something like a feelings wheel or a cheat sheet, so that we can, when we're so overwhelmed with these body sensations, have the words. Because I know the research does show that just labeling the feeling helps it to not be overwhelming, like I said, so like having some kind of cheat sheet is important. But I agree, I think having a meditation practice is also important, even if it's just sitting there with the list, asking your body, which one of these words is it? That's a type of mindfulness. If you're more intellectual, because when I was first learning how to feel my feelings, I used the nonviolent communication list. I actually hung it on my wall. I share this in some of my earlier videos, that with my ex-husband is who I learned with. And when we were fighting, I would take a time out and say, let me go look at the list. And I would look at the list of feelings and needs and soothe myself and identify them and come back and be like, okay, now I'm going to share my feelings and needs calmly and listen to your feelings and needs calmly. And I had to do that for months, but I committed to doing it. And then I learned how to share my feelings instead of making him wrong, and so it's a process. And that wasn't meditation. That was me looking at a list on my living room wall, so it's about finding what works for everybody.
I guess in my respect, I was so repressed, in my feelings, that I had a really hard time labeling them. So when I had that difficult time of labeling it, the meditation, just that first time that I took my meditation, really it just I started to actually being able to label it by just sitting and meditating. And it's like, okay, what are you feeling? And then all of a sudden it's like guilt. It's like, oh boy, okay, why are you feeling guilty? It's like, okay, then, you dig a little bit further. I was just way too suppressed to be able to feel it.
Oh my God. No, me too.
Until I took the meditation.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Me too. I mean, I did the meditation retreat in 2001, and I got I discovered nonviolent communication in 2012. So I think it had to be 11 years of meditating before I was ready to actually feel my feelings in my body too. So, but I
Right.
mean, I was extremely repressed as well. So I think for people who are not, I work with people all across the board. Some just get the list of feelings and needs and they know how to work with it. Others
Right.
need more guidance for how to feel their feelings in their body. And so I'm sure you work with the whole gamut as well.
Yes, I do. And
Yeah.
it's the primary thing. It's like, and the very onset, it's like, how good are you at labeling your feelings? Because if they don't have that, then it may take them a little bit longer to go and do the timeline therapy because they
Yeah.
have to be able to feel. And if they can't feel, then we that pre-work is to work through their needs and feeling that it's there. It has to be done first and foremost.
Right. No, exactly. Because then you know how to be with yourself when you go back into the past. You know how to be in that space of mindfulness, not get re traumatized, and actually learn more about what you need. And yeah, I completely agree that like having that mindfulness practice is important to stay centered. Uh,
Aware. Yeah. Centered,
and
aware, and alignment. Yeah.
and to not get re-traumatized because a lot of people are scared of bringing up past memories and getting re-traumatized, and the way to not do that is to stay in mindfulness. And that's what you meant, I imagine, by seeing it. I mean, when I summarize what you're saying is like seeing it on a movie screen. Forgot the term you used. Conscious observing of it.
Quantum consciousness. Years ago, I read a book about quantum consciousness, and it was about taking yourself out of the situation and viewing it like a movie rather than being in it. So whenever I was triggered, it's take yourself out to view it from a quantum consciousness, like very similar, like observing, very similar to the nonviolent communication. You're just observing rather than feeling it. Take yourself out and observe, but then observe the feeling and
Yeah.
observe what's going on. But yet, what is it, right? So very similar, just a different observation way of observing it.
Yes, I like that quantum consciousness and quantum observing because I agree. It is kind of like seeing it from a higher perspective. And in order to not dissociate while we do
No,
that and stay in our bodies, because that's what we need in order to be able to identify what we're feeling, we need
correct.
to have that mindfulness, meaning that we're in present time as the adult while we're seeing the past, and that's not easy to do if we don't have the training and or if we don't have someone else holding space for us. So that's, I imagine, why it's so valuable to work with you.
Yes, and the whole dissociation, that was a really great word that you brought up there because you have to be associated to your feelings and not disassociated. And it's really, really important to be a part of that just to get over whatever is holding you back from being authentically you in so many ways.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. I mean, I think, just the last bit that I want to ask you is like, do you have any inspiring stories or case studies to leave people with, like what's possible if people do this work? Either somebody who is chronically single that got into a loving partnership, or somebody who was just really unhappy in their lives who is now feeling fulfilled.
It's about coming back to themselves. And I guess the work that with the women that I've worked with, I've really found that they came back to themselves rather than living out here all the time and living out here. Was
Yes.
they really able to bring them back home so that they can be connected and be and honor themselves rather than just being out there and living that rather than living from here.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot, and it's really difficult to, because so many the women that I've worked with on worked on different things, and I just remember one of my clients, after we had done her session, I had given her a confidence hypnotherapy session, and holy cow, her world shook up so much after. She wasn't sure if she did the right thing because her confidence was being tested, right? Because we opened up that world and it was just all coming at her at once. And she goes, I'm having a hard time with this. It's like, and then we talked about it and kind of coached her out, and she kind of understood why it happened. And yet when she was in it, it's like, why is this happening to me? It's like, we shook up your world a little bit.
Yes, and I like your reframe of that question. Why is this happening for me?
Right. So it's just really interesting to work with the women. And one was she had a very difficult, I guess, family life, and her trauma was really holding her hostage. And I believe at the end of it, that she felt so much lighter that she could take on the world. And she actually shifted a lot, and she had found a full-time job, and her relationship with her son had gotten much better, and her mother. So it's just how to just bring you back home rather than making it about, the outside world that's making you miserable. A lot
Yeah,
of the time, it's our own ways, it's our own stories, it's our own behavioral patterns that we, learned between the ages of 0 and 8 years of age. And
yeah,
it just needs to be observed and, parts integration, and just bring it all home and just be a part with it and be with it.
right. So that you can integrate it and then access what's authentic,
Right.
instead.
Right.
Not like there's anything wrong with our survival programming. It helped us survive, and we can appreciate that as being from the past and choose something different now.
Right. And it's to learn from it and not to
Right.
need to recreate it and live it over and over and over again.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you find yourself in patterns like Groundhog Day where you can't seem to step out of it, then this is the kind of work that we're talking about.
Yep, it is.
So yeah, I would love to hear about your free gift. Then you have stress therapy
Yep.
in addition to the meditation.
In addition to the 5-minute meditation, there is I believe it's a 20-minute stress-free hypnotherapy that I had recorded. And it's very simple. There's a little bit of music in the background. However, it's soothing. Even I listen to it every once in a while when I'm on the bus, just to kind of set the tone. And if I'm not meditating, and yes, it's very easy. Just download it and take it with you.
Wonderful. Yeah, just to de-stress and to feel more centered.
Yeah,
So that's great because that's 20 minutes, and then you have something that's 5 minutes, so people can choose how much time they have.
correct.
And I imagine too that if you have that 20 minutes, then that's also perfect to afterwards ask yourself, how are you feeling? Because you're not stressed out anymore. So you'll be able to feel your body sensations and get a clearer answer. So I think that this is all really helpful. And I agree, anyone can download, Google image search for feelings wheels. There's hundreds of them. You can search the internet for a list of nonviolent communication feelings and needs. There's tons of them. Mm-hmm. And it really helps to have cheat sheets so that you can start to come back to yourself and meet your own needs so that you can ask for them in a harmonious way. And I think that you've done such a good job of demonstrating that and explaining that. So
Thank you.
thank you.
And you've done an amazing job summarizing it all.
Yes. Well, I mean, as I said, this is like one of the topics that I'm the most passionate about myself. It's, my own journey has been overlapping. And, I just feel passionate about helping people to reconnect to their feelings and discover what they need and get their needs met so that we can be fulfilled. Because I think that, our go, 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 go is not as fulfilling. Obviously, we need to accomplish things in order to live our purpose and survive. But we need to slow down and feel our feelings and identify our needs and feel fulfilled in order to be happy. And both are important. And so I think there's an overemphasis on the former, and we need teachers like us to help people to learn how to be fulfilled. So
Yep.
I
To
really,
come back home.
exactly. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing all this.
Well, I appreciate you interviewing me. I had a fantastic, it was a lovely conversation.
Yes, and likewise, and I hope everyone has a self-connected, fulfilling day. So, till
Thank you
next
very
time.
much.